The mainstream world is constantly telling us how we're supposed to be, what is acceptable, what is good, what is bad, what is admirable, and what is something to be shameful for. Constantly. News, social media, other people, authority figures, public figures. So many people don't even realize that they are taking part in this manipulation. But we are constantly being fed information that shames us, judges us, and makes us hide. Constant comparison, and every single one of us falls for this. And this is not to shame each other or shame ourselves for falling for it. I fall for it too. It is simply a reminder of how twisted the mainstream world is. Whether you've gone through a lot of trauma, family dysfunctions, codependency, addiction, losses, physical trauma, or you simply exist in this world, in this time and age, we have all been told to hide. And taught that we must see ourselves in others, therefore compare. And if we don't see ourselves in others, then we should not show that part of us. When other people's opinions, beliefs, points of view are projected onto us, especially if it's personal to us, so if we are judged, if we are abused and bullied as little kids, especially by adults, especially, that changes and puts little cracks in our energy. Those cracks can totally and easily be mended, but until they are cracks in my perception. Other people's projections and expectations on us can totally dim our light and make us hide, make us just not be ourselves. And this causes us to function from a series of trauma responses, which basically is like when somebody says that boys should not dress in skirts. Those boys are bad. I'm being super simple here, just like a really simple example. When this is told by, for example, a parent to a little boy, that boy will take that to be the truth, and automatically that translates to I am bad. And as a trauma response to not fit into that box of I am bad, or that statement, then I will never dress in skirts or anything similar ever again. So therefore hides his light, and that is a trauma response. So that boy dressing in skirts, before he hears that statement from a parent, does not think that dressing in skirts is like, that is like part of who I am, and that is maybe weird and unique, but I like it because it's me. It's not really, that's not really where we're at when we're kids. We're just being, and we don't have a point of view about it. We're just being. So that's why when this starts to be suppressed for that boy, that, you know, when he later starts healing and stops functioning from trauma responses, he has all these internal maybe judgments about boys dressing in skirts or whatever, then that could totally be an adjustment to realize, oh, I like dressing in skirts, and the world does not really love that, the mainstream world or my family or something. So that's a little taste of what I'm about to talk about. I already filmed the rest of the video, and I hope that it makes sense as a continuation of this intro. Yeah, let's get into it. Hello, welcome. In this video I'm going to be talking about two main things that happen once we start healing that we're probably not ready for. Most people aren't ready for. And when I talk about healing, what I mean is emotional healing and trauma healing. I'm not going to address like, oh, once you change internally, things externally are going to change to like reflect that, mirror that, like, oh, you'll start, you know, changing who you want to be around and all that. Like, that's not what it's about. I'm mainly talking about things that we really don't expect and that is not really talked about in like the mainstream healing spirituality community, in my opinion at least. So number one is shedding the layers of trauma responses and not functioning anymore from trauma responses, and therefore what is left, you know, you. And we have never been taught to function just from who we are, and we haven't given that space to us and that allowance because that was never a priority, because the trauma response was a priority. So basically when we start healing and when we really are consistent with it, when we start meeting our needs, we start acknowledging what we've been through, what traumas we've been through, how that has shaped us, and we start asking the questions of like, what is a trauma response, and like in what ways am I just constantly trying to prove myself instead of just choosing for me. And once we start doing that and consistently start doing that and get, you know, have some sort of regimen that is consistent, like healing sessions and or therapy, access bars, which is like does the most in my opinion, like when we stick with it and do it over and over again, and it just sheds these layers, and we no longer automatically function from those trauma responses. So this kind of like, because we've been living with a bunch of masks our entire life without realizing it, once these masks just start to evaporate, it's like some parts of our lives we have to really choose to take those masks off once we become aware of them, but sometimes they just evaporate and us, like ourselves, we just come out, and it can be a little bit of a shock sometimes to realize, especially for us who are just really different, like neurodivergent, for example, that's like pretty big in my discovery. So neurodivergencies can be the most common ones are ADHD, autism, OCD, and I think dyslexia is there too, but that's not the the topic of this. But basically, like, what is coming up for many of us who are realizing that, and we've never known that in our lives, is that it can be such a shock to learn that the outer world does not approve, basically. So the mainstream world has always been telling us, you're supposed to be like this, which is always not who we are. You're supposed to be basically neurotypical. You're supposed to be, this A, B, and C is supposed to make you happy. D, E, F, G, this means that you're lazy or whatever, you're wrong. So this can have to do with so many other things than neurodivergency, but I'm just going to use that as an example. So it can be such an adjustment and a shock to just realize and acknowledge this, that okay, I no longer like fit, not that you fit during these times, but it's like the illusion of fitting in was the main motivator of your life. So like now you have to just be, or my advice is just really be kind to yourself when you are going through this adjustment period of like, whoa, okay, I thought I was this, but I was basically just doing that as a reaction to my trauma. And I was functioning as someone who I am not really, and that was serving me at that time because that made me feel safe, or it gave me like a temporary, like a band-aid of safety. Now it's just causing you to burn out. It's causing you to be unhappy because you're not being you. You're not being who you came here to be and what you're capable of. And while we are in that adjustment phase, it's like, please try not to judge if you're maybe not getting much done, or if you just really are one big question mark of how, like, where do I belong and what am I really here to do and to be, and just really be kind to yourself in this time. And then number 2 is, it's really connected to the first one, but the ultra motivator, that is trauma and trauma responses. And this is basically, people pleasing, constantly being in a state of proving yourself instead of like choosing just for you. And if you relate to that, then you have lived and functioned from a space of basically illusion of energy levels, so like an illusion of energy supply. So you maybe feel now, if you're in the space of like you have been working a lot on yourself and you just feel like you don't have motivation anymore to do the things that you were so motivated to do before, this energy that we used to have when we were in a constant state of trauma response, I know I'm saying that word like 500 times in this video, is that wasn't real energy. It was like the adrenaline of fight or flight. So that was, if your past is anything like mine, where the only important thing in my life was to prove myself to my parental figures and anything in my outer world, any people who represented similar authority. So I was like a typical perfectionist, and that was the only important thing, was to just reach my goals and exceed every expectation of anyone around me. And then the more I healed those, like the origins of those, what was behind all that, then I, have had to find my own motivation for those things. And that also takes a lot of adjustment and time, just to also kind of reflect on, like, were those really those things that I was so passionate about, is that really what I really want to be doing and aiming for and continue to create in this lifetime? Or was that just the facade? Was that just, because I knew those people wanted me to do that? So that really depends on every situation and every person, and how connected you are to your purpose, if you want to call it that, your just passions, your dreams, your interests, and how well that was nurtured in you as a kid. So that also just brings up a time of reflection, adjustment, and a lot of questions to yourself, and honesty from yourself in space, to kind of shape that part of you again, and find truly motivation that comes from you and for you, not to prove yourself to others. So when we are functioning from this constant overdrive of adrenaline energy to prove ourselves, we are actually just really okay with the consequences of burnout, for example. And it's actually really beautiful to witness in ourselves and in people who have come a long way on their healing journey, is to see that that is no longer acceptable. Like, I do not overwork, and I'm not okay. It's no longer acceptable to overwork and be burnt out and reach my limits for something that is not more important than my physical energy, my overall health, and my overall well-being. And that is really beautiful to see that shift, even though it's confusing and weird, to go through it. So let's now just clear some things. And so all the projections and expectations that you have and have had in the past about what it's supposed to look like, what it's supposed to feel like, how it's supposed to be like, and how it's supposed to show up like, to heal your trauma and finally be you. Will you let go of all of that, and will clear the energy, the hidden energies, destroy and uncreate it all, right and wrong, good and bad, pot and buckle, night shorts, boys and beyonds. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And all expectations that have been put on you, we let go of all of that, destroy and uncreate it all, right and wrong, good and bad, pot and buckle, night shorts, boys and beyonds. And all the ways you're not willing to get to know your being, for who you truly be, and all the magic that you are. Will you let go of all of that times a gazillion, destroy and uncreate it, right and wrong, good and bad, bottom buckle, 9 shirts, boys and beyonds? And what would it take for you to totally embrace the difference that you are, and all the out of linearity energy and functionality that you have and are and be? Right, wrong, good, bad, buckle, 9 shirts, boys and beyonds. It's such a journey to be out and proud and all the ways that you are you, and it can totally take some time for you to just be fully safe in expressing you and especially if you are still surrounded by family members that possibly abused you, or just the dysfunction, like the people who were in that dysfunction with you. And there's truly no right or wrong to to the reasons you have to either cut people off or continue to be in relationship with. That's totally up to you, and you always know best what it means for you. And like, you are always the one and only judge of what acting from kindness to you means each day, and for each relationship and each thing, each part of your life. And that's something I'm going to talk about in another video also, how to, if you want tips about that. So just continue, keep going, and allow yourself the space that you need, and be ready for when you don't need that space anymore, to just thrive and enjoy being you and not be in a constant fight or flight. Yeah, so I'm going to end that video now. Hope that made sense. I know I am a bit unlinear, but that's me, and I love it about me. So love to you.